You shall be king over Israel, and I shall be next to you. Even my father Saul knows that." 1 Samuel 23, verse 17. Though Jonathan was the son of Saul, Israel's first king, he was nothing like his father. Where Saul was faithless and timid, Jonathan trusted the Lord with boldness. This is perhaps no more clearly seen than in the back-to-back accounts of father and son preserved for us in 1 Samuel 13 through 14. During a conflict with the Philistines, Samuel gave Saul instructions to wait for him at Gilgal. In 7 days, Samuel would offer a sacrifice there on the altar, and the Lord would deliver the Philistines into Saul's hands. But the Philistines were fierce, and many of Saul's men went into hiding. Saul, who was no stranger to fear, was filled with dread. When Samuel failed to arrive within the 7-day time frame, Saul decided to take matters into his own hands and offer the sacrifice himself. As soon as Saul had finished presenting the burnt offering, Samuel arrived, surveyed the scene, and lamented, "What have you done?" As a result of Saul's disobedience, Samuel announced, "You have not kept the commandment of the Lord your God, which he commanded you. For now the Lord would have established your kingdom over Israel forever. But now your kingdom shall not continue." Meanwhile, Jonathan and his armor-bearer left to take on a Philistine garrison. To reach it, the pair would have to free climb up the face of a craggy cliff characterized by slippery rocks and sharp thistles. Then they would need to subdue a mob of angry Philistines by themselves. Many would have seen such an operation as a suicide mission, but not Jonathan. Turning to his armor-bearer, he said, "Come, let us go over the garrison of these uncircumcised, that it may be that the Lord will work for us. For nothing restrains the Lord from saving by many or by few." Jonathan was fearless, not because he was confident in his own ability, but because he had placed his faith firmly in the promised will and power of God. If the Lord fought for them, the two of them would be enough. The Lord gave Jonathan and his armor-bearer more power than 20 heavily armed soldiers. When the Philistine army heard this, they were full of fear and began to scatter. God struck further terror into their hearts by causing an earthquake that sent them into a confused panic so that they began to kill one another. Jonathan had been exactly right. Nothing restrains the Lord from saving by many or by few. His faith secured the victory, while his father's faithlessness forfeited the throne. Of course, the throne would have likely passed to Jonathan if God had not rejected Saul. For this reason, Jonathan's love for David, the man God chose to succeed his father, tells us much about Jonathan's faithfulness to the Lord. Jonathan willingly gave up his own claim to the throne because he understood that God had chosen David instead of him. He had no resentment, only affection for the one who would reign in his place. Ironically, when Saul tenaciously tried to retain the throne for his son happily offered it to the man he knew was God's choice to be Israel's ruler. Jonathan did not merely accept his non-kingly role. He embraced it wholeheartedly, eagerly protecting and promoting the one whom God had appointed to be king instead of him. Even though Jonathan died in battle, his legacy lived on because of his special friendship with David. Years earlier, the two men had sworn an oath to each other. "May the Lord be between you and me, and between your descendants and my descendants forever." David honored that vow when he became king by seeking out Mephibosheth, Jonathan's sole descendant, and inviting him to the place where he was welcomed like one of David's own sons. David further gave him the land that had previously belonged to his grandfather, Saul, and instructed Saul's former servants to continue working the land for their master's grandson. Jesus said, "Greater love has no one than this, than to lay down one's life for his friends. John 15:13. In Jonathan, we have a vibrant example of a man who laid down his life while he was still living, gladly giving up all personal honor, power, and position for a friend because it was the will of God that he should do so.